your story particular is something that I'm like, okay, we need to start here, because here you are, crushing it when it comes to influencer marketing. You're based in LA, but I can just imagine how the story must have started, because your career looked a lot more like my field. You were working at Oracle in San Francisco, and I can just imagine a scenario where you told people like, hey, I have this safe career with this large tech firm in San Francisco, but I'm going to put this on hold. I'm going to move to LA and I'm going to do this influencer marketing thing. I'm just very curious, like, how was that received by your peers, and how did you make that decision anyway?
Yeah, so it was quite interesting because when I graduated college, I studied advertising and I knew that I wanted to work in social media. Like a lot of my internships were social media marketing or social media intern, etc. And like bachelor people ended up getting like a huge following. Like when I was in college, like Instagram started when I was a freshman, just to give you guys some like background a little bit. So that was like 2011, I want to say 2012, and like really started to pick up. And so people from the bachelor, that was like, I would say my senior year of college, junior, 2015, people started getting a following on Instagram, and you would start seeing ads on Instagram, and I'd be like, what are these and how are they, getting there? And like, even my senior project was like celebrity marketing and like seeing like doing background analysis of like all these celebrity campaigns and endorsements. So I was always super interested in it, but like anytime I would talk to anyone from LA, like, you're making minimum wage at an agency, or like I couldn't even get anywhere. Like, right? Like I'm like talking to people, like I would do informational interviews, anything. I wasn't getting anything in LA. And so when I got an opportunity at Oracle, I sort of was like, okay, well, I'll move home, save up money. Like I still hadn't had a job after I graduated college. So like the week after I graduated, I got the job at Oracle, and I was like, okay, guess I'm going to do this and like see what happens. Well, I ended up still staying there for 3 years. I absolutely loved my experience. And in the meantime, I would like volunteer my time with influencers and people from my favorite reality TV shows. And like, honestly, by sliding into their DMs and like offering to help, like I had experience like doing websites and media kits still from like my past like internships and stuff. And just like my classwork, right? Like in what I learned in college. So I would just like offer my help for free and like figure out like how I could help. One of my favorites from The Bachelor had a podcast. So I like offered to run their Facebook page for like all the listeners, which like now today has like 10,000 people on this like Facebook group that like listens to this podcast. And so I just did that stuff for fun, honestly, like didn't get paid anything for probably my last year at Oracle. And then I started officially looking. Like I always told myself I would want to stay at like my first job for 2 years. So probably like 2.5 years into my first job, I started looking. And I don't know, when I first told people, like everyone would kind of laugh, but like they also like knew me. Like I would go down to LA and like post like 5 selfies with different celebrities. Like I would go to events and like fangirl and like do like if there was a book signing at Barnes and Noble at the Grove, like I would go and meet Channing Tatum. I don't know, like whoever was there, right? Like Demi Lovato did one time, and I would just go do all those things, and it was super fun for me. So I don't feel like it was ever like that surprising. Now, is that surprising today that like I'm successful doing it? Probably, right? Like, because they're like, holy shit, like she actually did it and like has a successful career from it. Like, I feel like that's more shocking than me actually like making that jump, I guess,
I find there's a couple of things I want to dissect here that are quite fascinating. I noticed you've done a bunch of this stuff for free. And I feel, especially with the younger generation, there's like a pushback from doing stuff for free. And,
Wait.
there's a call it a balance, right? Because there's industries that are abusing, young labor, that you're talking about the minimum wage employees that are working with an agency. But then here you are doing it for free. and you're doing this and it seems to have reaped some rewards. So I kind of wanted to dissect it. Why is it that you were able to do this for free and it seemed to actually help you build a lot of connections, and it kind of planted some seeds for success? But I see a lot
Yeah.
of people, they're like bitter about wanting to do that kind of stuff, you know?
You know, but do you think that that's like a generational thing now, Jason? Because like I kind of do. Like I feel like I grew up like knowing that like if you wanted to work somewhere, you might need to volunteer somewhere. Like you might need to volunteer to get experience and stuff. So like I don't know, like I talk about this actually a lot because I don't know anyone that's like sliding into my clients' DMs willing to help for free at this point. You know what I mean? And like do anything. Like, and this was now probably 7 years ago that I would do that, right? And like volunteer to like start a fan page for these bachelor people, right? And like do all that. And I think that it made a huge difference in me because I just think back to me. I'm like, if someone offered to do that for me and help Little Red in any capacity, like I would want to hire them tomorrow anyway and pay them because like who does that these days? So do you think it's a generational thing? Like I think that anyone's like, I mean, they won't even, Jason, people won't even work a minute over their time
Mm,
anymore
mm. It's
of like at work,
there's this is really the thing that I find interesting because I'm a millennial, right? And I think I've come from the same background of being told like work harder than you're paid, and then you'll have career. There was this expectation that when you do that, the world will reward you. And I've seen the fruits of my labor. And I feel that there's a jadedness within the next generation where they're like, you know what? I feel like organizations have tapped into the young heart that can work harder, that can go beyond the extra mile, but it didn't necessarily come with the fruits, or the fruit seems to have been stolen from them, or the expectation that the fruits are going to be stolen from them. And so there's a whole jadedness for the next generation that seems to be more prevalent. And I don't necessarily want to blame that generation. I think there's been some serious cases of abuse. There's some people that are like, oh, we could take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a having to move for something with a long-term payoff, with perceived high risk and not guaranteed result. And I think there's a fear. There's just like, you know what? No, I'm not going to work an extra dime. That's it. I clock out at 5, and I think it's going to hold back a lot of people. And I have a feeling you're going to be of the same opinion. But now, if I see someone in their early 20s that does go the extra mile, that's somebody that I'm going to bring on the roster. That's somebody I'm going to want to promote. That's somebody I want to proactively give a raise and keep them, because that is gems. And I think that,
Well, and I notice it. Like, that's the thing. It's very noticeable. Like, if someone's staying even till 5:10, I'm like, you are a keeper, because like people will not. I mean, they won't. Like, they're just like, they're out at 4:59. You know what I mean? And it's like, I just was always taught, it's like, no, you need to stay until you get your work done, like whatever time that is. Like, I mean, yeah, I don't want to be working an hour overtime if I don't need to, you know what I mean? And like do your priorities. But at the same time, I'm like, I feel like it's so rare to find these days that once you find them, you got to keep them and figure out how to.
Yeah. So I definitely see there's a reframing, but nonetheless, you were able to kind of apply the principles that you've seen, allowed you to kind of open some doors, get to have some of this work done. Now, I'd be very curious to see the point where you moved to LA and you went from saying, okay, I've been kind of planting these seeds, doing some work for free, but then at some point you're like, I'm going to charge for this. I'm going to sell this for money. And I'd love for you to walk us on how were you able to make that kind of transition?
Yeah. So I actually, when I first moved to LA, I worked at a talent agency for about a year. Okay. I mean, it was a friend of a friend actually that referred me, and I got lucky, and, it took me a couple months to find a full-time job once I moved to LA. But by the way, I was always told that like, you have to move to LA in order to get the job, because you have to be available. Like, someone's not going to hire you when you're in San Francisco. So at some point I did just make the move to like, to live here, because I just didn't think I would ever be hired anyway. And now that I'm hiring people, I see how that makes sense. Like, you can't tell someone like, oh, I'm going to move. Like, no one knows if you're actually going to move in 2 weeks, or like move when you get the job or whatever. But anyway, I ended up getting a job after a couple months, and working at a talent agency. And about a year later, like I just decided that like I wanted to work with reality stars because that's what I was into. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's just like the shows that I watched, and like I was always into social media, and this agency focused on more like commercials and just with more celebrity status people. And like I thought it was really cool, but like I still wanted to work with the reality TV, and they didn't want to go that route. So I decided to go off on my own. And I actually feel like this is where it sort of paid off to work for free, because in addition to being able to quit and start my own business, I was able to also work part-time at the podcast network that I, a year prior, started volunteering for. And I got hired through them for about like 15 hours a week. So it was kind of like this saving grace that like still I had a backup in addition to starting Little Red, which was great because I worked there for like, I want to say probably over a year, honestly, still like after I started Little Red. So yeah, I always think, and then not to mention, but like all my clients, which were like maybe 10 people, were people that I worked for free for before and like offered to help them. And I was able to pitch them and do partnerships for them. So that was also really awesome. And I just feel like it always pays off to offer to help people because I guess people don't do it anymore. I know.
You stand out a lot more when you do it. But I do think there's a kind of a skill that in your case, you're able to kind of deploy from, going out and helping people for free and then kind of approaching them and being like, oh, by the way, I have a business that does this and I want you to be my client. And I'd be very curious to how you would approach, like, especially some of the first ones you talked to and said, hey, now I have an agency and I want you to be my client. Was there any resistance? Was there any fear about now you were going to go ask them for money? And then did that change your relationship with those individuals or brands?
It's so funny. So, Jason, just to give you like a little background of like, obviously, more about how Little Red works is like, really, we're the ones that are bringing brand deals to our talent, and then we are working off commission, right? So they technically don't have to pay me up front and then like buy into my service as much, right? As like paying me once I get a brand deal. Does that make sense? Yeah. So like a lot of the conversations at first, like, I mean, I love this story, but there was like one girl where like I literally ran into her at a bar in Austin and was like, oh my God, like, hi, I know you from Are You the One? Like back in, a couple years ago. I don't know if you ever watched that show. It was a great show.
No,
anyway,
I'm sorry.
But did you watch any of these, Jason?
Well, first off, I'm in Bali, so yeah, I don't have access to American network television. And no, but guess what? Living in Canggu, you kind of get to live it every day. But that's for those who know, they know.
No, but like I would like go to Austin and then I just like kept in touch. Like I asked for a picture, I think, and then I was like, oh, I do partnerships, like blah, 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 like let's stay in touch. And so then when I actually started my own company, it's like I would reach out to people that I would meet because I think that they knew that I worked in partnerships. And also at that point, I was kind of thinking that I could bring them on to my current agency that I was working with. But then once I had those conversations that, my team didn't want to go that reality route, then that's when I was like, okay, maybe I do this on my own, But I think that that's like what's interesting is it's like people didn't have to like buy into my services. It's like I almost have to like prove to them like, oh, I can make you money. But like who's going to say no to a $5,000 social media post that I'm going to bring them?
Yep.
Like,
yeah.
But I mean, I think that it goes back to it's like, I also had to start all of these brand relationships from scratch as a new agency, and like, and create those relationships. Because at the end of the day, those are the people that are paying us, right? Are the brands. So
I find that very interesting. So, if I understand this industry, for anybody who might not be familiar, is you are kind of building a marketplace where you have connections to all of these assets. And they're not like these stars happen to not even be technically clients, but they're assets that become partners in sharing revenues from who you sell to, who you're selling to are the brands to see the assets you have, which is like, oh, okay, they can actually funnel money into media, which you have the relationships with. And now you have to go and sell out to brands to be like, hey, give us some of that marketing budget, because if we get it distributed through these channels of these people I have relationships with, it's going to bring them results. And so you're kind of maintaining this big marketplace. And then the more stars you sign, the more you can go to brand deals and have, market power, which means brings bigger brands, and then it just keeps snowballing. Is that a great way to see the industry?
I think that you're hitting it on the head right there. And I think that it's also like, for me specifically as like a boutique management company, like I don't want to bring on like every talent that I meet. Like at this point, now that I'm 5 years in, like I want to foster and grow like each person that I bring on individually and grow them into bigger talent and like more opportunities for those people. So I try to like not look at it, I guess, as like, oh, let me bring on more talent and more brands. Like I'm kind of looking at it as like, okay, here's this talent that, I talked to someone yesterday about like being a travel influencer and bringing them on as a client. And then I can go out to all the brands that kind of make sense for them, even if I don't have the relationships. So I think like kind of what you're referring to is 100% correct. It's just, I also think that like more marketing agencies also do that, right? Like they have rosters of thousands of influencers. Okay. And they can like, and then they come to me kind of to book talent sort of. But like for me, I only really have 30 exclusive people that I work with on an everyday basis, and I'm pitching out those people. Does that kind of make more sense? Like it's more of like a talent manager, like close niche relationship.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. And I find it very interesting that I believe there's kind of a trend where people are wanting to work with more boutique, more partnerships of people that actually care, as opposed to being kind of put through a meat grinder of a large, marketing agency or influencer agency where you're just, another cog in the system. And so I'd be curious to know what's kind of the sale point when you work with a few of these people and you're bringing them onto your platform. They probably had an existing talent agency, but they're deciding to make the switch. How do you communicate to them, and what are the typical frustrations they had that make them go, oh yeah, I need a change and I need to work with you?
Yeah, it's hard because I deal with it every day. I think some of my people, Jason, they come right off the show. So they really don't know who to go to because they already don't have management. So I think really when in those cases, it's about word of mouth and what they're hearing from other past contestants or their friends or whatever, right? And also just maybe the connection that you end up having with the person. I think when switching over happens, it's typically when the talent aren't happy with the current deal flow that they're getting from their past managers. So they're not making enough money or not happy with the deals that they're having. Or honestly, I mean, I've had people leave because, they're not very organized maybe, or, they're, I don't know, like I don't know what other people's like pain points are, right? Like, cause I'm like, I don't know why they could, mostly I feel like it is because of the deal flow in general. But I do think that there's so much that I offer. Like we are sending all the invoices on behalf of our clients. We're chasing payments. We have a great system where we're paying everyone and they can see what's upcoming. We're really organized when it comes to like even just writing up like what the brand wants, and here's like, it's like kind of like influencer like lingo, because I don't even know if like it'll make sense to people listening, but we have briefs and we like talking points and post info, and it just all these different things that like it just is so important to be so organized. But then also like on the other side, be personable, have connections, maybe be in the city that the talent is in, right? Like it's just things like that. I mean, I have a client where like or like this girl that I want to work with, and she's in Canada. So it's like, do I have her, like, do I tell her that I work with another Canadian influencer? Because like I do have access to all these Canadian agencies, so like, is that my selling point? It's my selling point that just like my personality. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's just so hard when people come off shows and stuff. So I think that also a lot of that comes with just like your reputation and word of mouth in this industry. So important.
Well, it seems like you've kind of carved your own moat in the sense that you are the agency for reality TV stars. Like that's for everyone that's in marketing.
There's a few, but I would like to be the only one.
Well,
Just kidding.
but at the same time, it's what we talk about a lot in marketing, which is like, okay, you're going into a niche, right? It seems like you're not working with musician, you're not working with actors at this point. Like the way that you're communicating yourself is, if you've been on reality TV, we're the agency for you. And so how does that help you? Because I feel like talent agencies in LA, there must be so many, and you're trying to stand out. And how important do you think it is to be able to be specialized to a niche, to be able to stand out in your field?
I think it's so important. And I think it's like even more interesting to be like, I'm not just going to work with every reality star that comes off the show. So like I've had times where it's like multiple people from the same season will reach out, and it's like, I can't work with multiple people from the same season. Like I just don't want to. Like, I think that that's just like, I don't want to be pitching a bunch of people, that are super similar or like from the same season. Sometimes that can like have conflict of interest and stuff. But also it's interesting, Jason, because like over the past few years, I've brought on YouTubers, I've brought on foodies, I've brought on travelers, like bloggers, just to almost like challenge myself, right? Too, because like I don't want to just be in this niche for just reality, because like there's so many other creators out there that are so great. I do have a musician and actress that's 19 years old and she's amazing, and like I get her just as much deal flow as the other clients too. And so like I do have some of those people. Is that sort of like my niche? No, I like being known for reality TV because I feel like that's sort of majority of my clients. But, I do think that helps me in some capacity of like, yeah, if you are from reality.
I need to expand on this, because I've had a lot of my clients that would get so afraid about picking a niche because they would think, oh my God, if I put myself in this bucket, if there's somebody that's outside this bucket that comes by, they won't want to do business with me and I'll push them away. But what you've just said is you've kind of positioned yourself where you're known for the person that works in reality, but you're still getting deal flows of clients that are actors, musicians, travel influencers. Did you find that having this reputation of being in the niche of reality TV repelled deals, or did it actually even get people curious about working with you, even if they didn't fit that kind of expectation of who they were?
I will say that like majority of my clients that are not in reality, like they're fans of reality. So like they probably found out about me like through my reality talent still, And even like when I had that call yesterday with like a travel influencer, like I tell them, I'm like, look, like I think I can do really well for you because I have another creator that's a traveler that like does really well too. And I think I can do really well for you, but like I don't want you to sign exclusivity or like be with me completely until like I know that I can get you deal flow too, But because it is a challenge for me, I know when like at this point, I know when someone gets off reality TV, how much money I can probably make for them. Like it's pretty much not that it's like a formula or like, oh, you can make, but like I strongly believe like you get off reality TV, you post consistently on socials, you're posting good content out there, you're being pretty clean, like not getting yourself in trouble. Like you can make 6 figures, and like I know to expect that. So like I can almost promise those people that I'm going to do a good job for them. You know what I mean? For reality TV. Whereas when I bring on someone that's not in my niche, I'm like not 100% sure. I should be more confident. I'm working on it. But it's like, you just don't know, because the relationships that you have and the brands that I have are probably gear more in reality TV most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like just finding that other niche.
I still find that it's great because you've went into that direction. You've built these relationships. You have these brands that you've nurtured. You've brought consistent results. You've perfected your craft, bringing the confidence, and now you're still in a position where you can go and explore new territory. And this is just something I want to bring home for all the listeners, is that when you actually put your stick in the ground around something that you've found that you have a passion and it's fun to work with these people, there's an actual industry, there's value you can provide to them, that makes you so much more focused. That allows you to kind of break through the clutter of a lot of people that might be saying, I'll work with anyone, as you're picking your lane. And then once you've done that, you're seeing that maybe there's going to be some tangents that are coming from there, coming towards your way, and now you get to go and expand. And I find that's a really big one I want to stress on, because I would hate for people to think that by going in this direction of being very specific on who you work for, what you do for them, understanding the results you bring for them, is going to make them feel limited in their organization. It's actually probably going to give them the foundation so they can expand and leapfrog from there. Right now, when you look at the industry as a whole for reality TV, do you see this as an expanding market right now?
I'm not sure. I feel like, to be honest, the amount of followers and stuff that people have gotten have been going down, I would say more so over the past couple of years than increasing. This past Bachelor season, for example, was probably one of the first seasons that did pretty well compared to the last 4 or 5 years, to be honest. So I think, it could be hopefully it's coming up, but I'm not sure. It's interesting, Jason, because I feel like at this point, it's I don't typically even go after the new people getting off the show, because I already have such good relationships with the people that I work with, and they still work so hard that and are still, talked about and doing a good job, where I just don't really always find the need to go after the latest reality star, But I don't know. It's kind of scary. I think that it's people aren't as interested as much, but also it's also weird, because once you're on a reality TV show, you're also just a content creator, and so can you become a good content creator post show? If anything, I feel like it just helps elevate them and get a following, and then they have to figure out what their audience is, right? And how to keep that, sustain that following, and even grow it again. But there's so many content creators in general, this is not going anywhere. If anything, I hear more and more that Fortune 500 companies that part of their media plan includes influencer marketing. I don't think that that's going anywhere. I think it's becoming more and more popular. And so it's I don't even necessarily, I hope, have to worry about the reality TV space. It's more just making sure that my creators are still creating content, but then also just that, Instagram doesn't go away, right? Or
or TikTok, as the media says.
Okay, TikTok, I always joke. I'm it's fine. That one can go away. It is extra incoming, but majority of my clients are more busy on Instagram overall, I find, personally, right? I'm not saying that there's not a lot of money in TikTok, because there still is. But I just find that majority of my partnerships, I do feel are on Instagram.
Well, let's be clear.
I'm for sure, please don't go away.
Let's be clear. Instagram is the reality TV of all our personal lives, right? That's the best curated space for it. So I can definitely see why that would be the natural place to go.
Our highlight reel, right?
Courtney, one more thing I want to poke at is, the fact that you made this leap, you take all these initiatives, you founded this company back when you were 25, and you seem to be radiating from, a lot of confidence. But you're also out there in LA, where there's always going to be some star that's bigger, some agency that's bigger. So it's very easy to find yourself in a space where you're trying to compare yourself for others. And I wanted to just understand, what are some of the things that you've built into your own character to get you to keep moving, to have that confidence? Because sometimes, especially as a small business owner, it's almost discouraging, because you're oh, well, there's always going to be someone else there doing better than me. And it's almost you give up before even starting. And so I'd love to hear, the bit of the mental journey that gave you the persistence to get to the point where now you have success.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think it's still even hard to this day when I hear that, a creator that I wanted from the latest reality TV show or The Bachelor that goes to another agency and one of my competitors, it's always hard to hear that. But I think at the end of the day, I just have to remember that I'm still successful with the people that I'm working with and super grateful for who I'm working with and what brand relationships I've created, that what I'm doing is working for me, and you have to keep going, right? Like, I even tell my talent, because they're constantly comparing themselves to other creators. Why did they get Nike and I didn't, right? Like, and at the end of the day, it's like, you have to keep doing what you are good at and your niche. And like, because I strongly believe that niches are so important in any business. I do. Like, you are probably really good at a couple things, and like, keep doing what you're good at, you know? But yeah, I think it's all about being like persistent and like keep doing what you love and who you love working with. And, listen to yourself too, because you also, like most entrepreneurs, it's like they started a business because they want to be able to make their own decisions, and like, just keep doing that. Like, make your own decision and do what you like doing and what you love doing, and remember why you started it,
I love that. Courtney, this was a fascinating dive into an industry that I wasn't as familiar with, and I'm excited about all the things that you've done to navigate it, the networks you've built, the success you've had, and the lessons you've shared. But I'm not going to let you go without asking you the one question I ask all my guests on the show, which is, you are on the Selling with Love podcast. So what does selling with love mean to Courtney?
I know, I was like almost going to ask you earlier. I was like, can you explain to me like what yours is? Like, what do you mean by that? What is some examples?
Yeah, well, if you put it back on me, selling with love, the definition within the book is every sale is an energy exchange between conscious beings. And when you know what you offer is more than what you ask in return, the emotion of love is what balances the equation. And so that's my geeky scientific
Yeah, I'm like, that
equation.
is like way too complicated for me.
So when you hear it based on your interpretation of selling with love, what does it mean to you?
Okay, I feel like I got it. So I feel like I always tell everyone that, not everyone, but I always tell a lot of people that like, I only want to work with people that I watch on TV, or that I personally love following, or that I like in general, mostly because they're easy to sell. So like, I feel like, and get brand partnerships for. So, selling with love is like, you can't sell something that you don't love or that you don't believe in yourself. So all my clients and stuff that I work with, and even the brands that I work with, it's like, no, like, I have to sell it because I believe in it and love them, or believe in the brand, or whatever it is.
Perfect. Courtney, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on the show. All the best. And for all of you listeners tuning in, a lot of times, whatever industry that you're in, if you're going to be getting started, some of the connections and networking that you get to do from giving more than what you're expected, maybe volunteering, maybe doing some free work to solve problems for people, especially the types of work that when you go and do that for others, that will craft your skill, get you your experience, might be some of the most valuable thing to do. And as Courtney and I discussed, it seems to be a very rare quality in most people today. So if you get to be the person that actually goes out and does a bit more than the minimum, you'll find yourself being able to stand out very, very fast. I also love what Courtney was sharing, is that as she's building her business, she also started working part-time in industries that gave her leverage. She was working with the podcast industry that gave her some of the part-time work she needed, also keeping her connected to the industry and building network connections. So finding something that can support you at the beginning, because starting a business can be hard on cash flow. And if you have something that supports you and keeps the bills paid, can get you to be doing the right decisions to build the right relationships and build a business that you really want. Something I've noticed within Courtney the whole time is a lot of passion, a lot of fun, and a lot of love for the clients. The brand just makes the work more effortless, makes you work harder, and then keeps you aligned to your vision. Courtney, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you so much for having me and for talking me up too. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to the Selling with Love podcast. We have some previous episodes you can tune into right here. And if you prefer the short form content where you get to the point in under 10 minutes, we do have a ton of clips from our best episodes that are being shared on this channel as well. So pick which one supports you the most. And of course, thank you for liking, subscribing, and of course, selling with love.